hip hop soul in the crowd. Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome back in. It's the Rob and Stu Show. Today we are talking Pac-12 football, and got an amazing guest for you folks. Host of Locked On Ducks. He's a newcomer to the show. Happy to have him, Spencer Mclaughlin. How are you, brother? And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be on with you guys. It is pronounced McLaughlin, but don't worry.
McLaughlin.
You're only about the 879th person to make that misstep. So no worries. But
Stu never makes a mistake. Stu actually went to college. Me, I graduated on the Turnpike. I mean, I didn't even forget it. I graduated Jersey Turnpike. I mean, Stu's an
I'm not gonna bring up you trying to read a racing form. Okay. Yeah, tough.
There's that Michigan State schooling right there.
Oh yeah.
Let's. I know that a lot of people are expecting us to chat Pac-12. Basically, well, unfortunately, it's gone. While we started this conversation, it's now gone.
Well, no, not yet.
Kind of. It's exploded. It's in the ether.
No, not yet. That more schools have to leave. But if another one leaves, that could entice others to leave, and then that could cause it. But as we record the show, the Pac-12 exists as a conference, and there is a path to the league existing, but that is, of course, much less likely than it was previously. And look, I thought it was, a surefire guarantee the league would continue to exist and whatnot. But the likelihood now is no longer, it's not a 100% guarantee that Pac continues to exist. But the league has not officially imploded. But we could very well look back in a month's time or less and say that was the start of the downfall of the Pac.
Spencer, don't take any of his jabs serious. He's a nose in the air Big Ten fan. He puts me down all the time because we're new to the Big Ten. I love the Pac-12. Listen, I'm an East Coast guy, but I'm always up on a Saturday night, whether I get home from the Rutgers games or I've been gambling all day. The Pac-12 is always the last bet of the night to get me out.
Pac-12 after dark, baby.
Absolutely.
Pac-12 after dark.
You love it.
And you guys don't even recognize the magnificence that is Hawaii in the morning. Okay, that's my go-to. That's my get me out of jail card. It's Hawaii playing New Mexico State. That's on the island, the big island.
You're a diehard college football fan if you can watch Hawaii against New Mexico State.
I'm sick.
I will watch Hawaii play New Mexico State. New Mexico State's in a new conference this year. I want to see how they match up.
Ags.
Yeah,
Diego Pavia. Let's go.
Stu is sick.
Yeah.
Stu is sick. He's sick.
Yeah. You guys know I actually do play-by-play for a school that until recently was in the same conference as New Mexico State in the WAC.
Here we go. Here, ask him, Stu, what it is, because I know you know a player on the team.
What school?
Southern Utah.
Oh, Southern Utah. Much better basketball school, but yeah. That's awesome.
Yep. Lately, they've been better in the bat. They were 5-6 in football last year, and they've got a very, very good and accomplished head coach. But they have been their brand has definitely been hotter as a basketball school because they were a tournament capable team each of the last 3 years. Unfortunately, didn't materialize. It did on the women's side. I'm sure you guys saw that miraculous shot from Sharita Doherty going around and everything like that. But But anyway, I don't want to get too distracted on the WAC because
we're this turned into a Southern Utah WAC preview.
Stu's all excited.
I'm pumped. I have so many questions. Why am I so much more excited about Southern Utah than Oregon?
Let's start with the bottom of the Pac-12. Your California, your Arizonas, your Arizona State, Deion Sanders at Colorado, and Sanford, David Shaw getting fired. If we could wrap up those teams of the Pac-12, anything you like from those teams, anything you're looking for from the bottom of these Pac-12 schools?
Well, I think the Pac, on the whole, it really is a shame that this meteorite stuff is overshadowing what is going to be an amazing season in the Pac, and now it's just got even more interest and intrigue and whatnot. But the bottom of the conference will have some teams that will struggle this year, as does every other conference in America. But what has always kind of separated college from the NFL is the NFL. Colin Cowherd makes this point a lot, and he's correct. you can be bad, but you can be interesting. Oftentimes in college football, you're not. There are storylines amongst those bottom tier teams in the Pac-12. And you talk about Cal, their win total, I don't know if you guys saw, got bumped up from 4.5 to 5.5, something that I kind of took a victory lap about on my show when it happened, because I've been as bullish as you can be on Cal this year. I think they're capable of being a bowl eligible team. Their schedule is very hard, but Cal has brought in a new OC, a new offensive line coach, a new quarterback that's probably the most dynamic and explosive guy they've had at the position in quite some time. And they have a lot of good skill position players. Jeremiah Hunter, they have a guy who's a top 100 incoming freshman according to 24/7 Sports, whose last name is also Hunter, at the wide receiver position. They have Jaden Ott at running back. They brought in Byron Cardwell from Oregon, another back they brought in from Tennessee. So I like their offensive pieces, and I trust Justin Wilcox to be able to put together a defense. And they took a step back on that side of the ball last year, but I trust them to be able to rebound this season. So I think Cal is the best of that group that you mentioned, but then you look at Colorado. What are they going to be in year one under Deion Sanders? You talk about Arizona State, year one under Kenny Dillingham. I don't think anybody knows what to expect other than not a whole heck of a lot from the Sun Devils. And also, they've got Jaden Rashada sitting behind Drew Pine if he struggles. So they're interesting there. The only uninteresting team, frankly, is Stanford. And Stanford's got a first-year head coach as well. So there's that inherent level of, hey, that's kind of interesting. Like, what are you going to see? What should we expect coming down the line? So I think the bottom of the league is, better than it's been before. I think Stanford is probably your last place team. That would be my pick. That was the Pac-12 media's pick as well. And they have the lowest win total in the conference. And I think that all stacks up. But I think there's some intriguing moments, and I won't be surprised at all if, a Cal or a Colorado is able to upset a contender at some point during the season. I don't know that I'll be picking it, but if you told me right now it happened, I'd say, yeah, Cal or Colorado against one of the 6, quote unquote Pac-12 contenders, I could see
it. I see your point about Cal, and to me, they're very much on the same level. They're not far off in terms of if you compare them to Washington State. Cam Ward gets a lot of pub for being, like you said, extremely dynamic with Cal's quarterback. However, I think if you lump those bottom 4 teams, Colorado aside, and it plays into the national narrative, which is Pac-12 doesn't really have that defense. Defense is optional, right? We see a lot of those 30, 34, 41 type games. I see those teams struggling, but there is some defense certainly in this conference, and we saw Oregon State play way above their heads, and it was based on defense last year. Washington State last year, a team that played above their heads defensively. It seems like Oregon State, UCLA, or UCLA, as they like to be called, and Washington State, kind of in that same group where they're mid-pack. They could go up some, they could go down some, but firmly mid-pack. Do you see one of those teams making a jump this year?
I think Washington State is intriguing, and I think Arizona is intriguing. Those would be my picks. Now, Cal making a jump from a 4-8 team to maybe a 6-6 team, I don't think that's the sort of jump you're necessarily referring to, but Arizona and Washington State are the 2 teams that I look at as kind of those middle of the road Pac-12 teams that I could definitely see being a better team than people perhaps expect. And look, Washington State's win total is 6.5. They were a 7-5 team last year. They had Oregon on the ropes. You guys probably don't know this because you don't follow the Pac-12 like I do. Washington State last year blew a 12-point lead against Oregon with about 5 minutes to go, which as an Oregon fan made me quite happy. But when I step back and look at the big picture, if they hold on to that lead, Washington State last year would have been 5-0 with wins over Wisconsin and Oregon in the same season, and a dominant win over a struggling team in Cal, which is, looking the way that you should if you're a good football team. So they were that close. They were a 4-1 football team with a close loss to Oregon and a road win at Wisconsin. And the key for them, I talked about this earlier this week on my show, their big question going into this season. I've been examining kind of what the big questions are for every team going into this year, trying to shift the talk over to football. But Colorado has seen to it that that's just not going to be the case for the next little while. So Washington State is a team that if they get the best out of Cam Ward, if he's the best, most efficient, productive version of himself, I think their ceiling is 9-3. Now, I say that's their ceiling. I think their floor is 5-7. I don't think they could be a 4-8 team with the schedule that they've got. I think their floor is 5-7, but I expect them to be in the 5-9 win range. And look, if they play to their potential, Jake Dickert is a great defensive coach and Cam Ward is really talented. I would watch for the Cougars to be one of those kind of middle of the road teams that could be better than people think this year. Like,
I'll tell you what, 6.5 is their win total. I kind of like the way you're talking. I'm going to take them with the over.
I like the over. I like the over quite a bit because their schedule doesn't include Utah and it doesn't include USC. So they are getting the best schedule possible to win the maximum amount of games. I think whether or not they go over 7 wins will come down to whether or not they beat Wisconsin this year, but they're a tough team to beat at home, and the Badgers are going to learn that in week 2.
My 2 points I want to get to next. Okay. You're obviously an Oregon fan.
Yep.
You're a victim of Chip Kelly. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fanatic.
Victim?
I'm a victim. I'm a victim. I'm a victim of Chip Kelly. Okay.
Ouch. 20-12 in 2 years and a division title and a victim of Chip Kelly.
Yeah, but I mean, he destroyed us.
Never
he got us some good. He made some good draft picks. I'll say that, but he destroyed the franchise. He's a war criminal, whatever you want to say. Now, but I want to ask you, Dante Moore, freshman quarterback coming in from UCLA, a lot of hype. Chip Kelly went out this year in the transfer portal, added all kind of guys on this offensive line. They had a really good season last year. Obviously, they lose DTR. They lose Charbonnet to the NFL as well. What do you think about the UCLA Bruins coming into this season? I like the fact he went into the transfer portal and grabbed this many guys.
Yeah, they needed to. I mean, you lose DTR, you lose Zach Charbonnet, you lose Jake Bobo. There's your 5th-year starting quarterback who was wildly productive, your leading rusher, your leading receiver. You better go into the portal. But they've made some nice additions there. I think an under-the-radar one, Maliki Matavao, tight end from Oregon, will help them in the run game and is a capable pass catcher as well. J. Michael Sturdivant, wide receiver from Cal. I think that guy's a true number 1. I mean, last year, Jack Plummer was not a great quarterback, but it wasn't because he didn't have good weapons to throw the ball to. I mean, Jeremiah Hunter is back for Cal this year. Good receiver. J. Michael Sturdivant was a top 100 player and committed to play at Cal. And I think he's really, really good. So I think they have some pieces. Carson Steele, the running back from, I believe, Ball State, they've added in the portals, expected to be their starting running back there. But UCLA is a fade team for me. I am fading the Bruins this year for this reason and this reason alone. This is the best quarterback league in the country. And here we are on July 26th recording this show. They don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be.
I think I saw early odds that he is slightly more valued.
Schlee. Colin Schlee, the Kent State transfer.
Yeah, Schlee.
I mean, but again, if you don't have a guy that has been so good and is so ready to start that you've announced it already and you're not going to decide that until fall camp, maybe they know internally and they're just not putting it out there. I will see that is, or concede that is 100% a possibility. But if it's the other one and they haven't had a guy separate himself from the pack, I don't see how you can match the quarterback play of the other great teams in the league. I know that Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in college football. I know that Michael Penix and Bo Nix are NFL caliber quarterbacks. I know that Cam Rising is a 2-time defending conference champion and former first-team All Pac-12 guy. I just don't like the uncertainty there. And though I trust Chip Kelly to develop a quarterback, year 1 with DTR and even year 2 wasn't very good. And if you don't have a guy who's, lighting the world on fire, I don't know how you can keep pace with the other contenders in the pack. Even DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State is going to be more proven than whatever UCLA rolls out at quarterback this year.
I wonder
if
that
was my next point. To me, and I'll let Stu go right after me.
Yeah.
I interrupted him. DJ to me is horrific. I don't care that he did move conferences. I couldn't stand watching him last year. He cost me a lot of money at Clemson. I know he's an upgrade for Oregon State. I'm not a fan. I am just pure not a fan.
So here's what I'll add to that, Rob. You're not a fan of DJU at Clemson. I understand that. I don't think anybody was. Dabo Swinney wasn't. He benched him several times. But what he was asked to do over there is radically different than what he should be asked to do at Oregon State. Because at Clemson, what do the best Clemson teams look like? They're running their offense through the quarterback. Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, won national championship apiece. That's what they were asking DJ Uiagalelei to do. That's what they're going to ask Cade Klubnik to do. But at Oregon State, you just need to be, everybody's favorite term, you need to be a quality game manager, and that's it. You just need to be able to give them a presence, to give them a threat. They somehow managed to go like 6 or 7-1 last year with Ben Gulbranson starting, and that gave you no consistent downfield presence throwing the football. DJU at Clemson on a good day needed to throw for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns. At Oregon State, he needs to average like 240 passing yards a game, and it'll be an upgrade from what they had last year. And his arm talent will allow them to take deep shots with guys like Silas Bolden. And I'm forgetting the name of the other return man, which is so dumb for me. But they have a couple of really talented, speedy receivers. If they can introduce just the threat of a vertical component, like Oregon State last year had nothing but a fastball. They don't need to go out and have the greatest slider known to mankind. They just need to go get a slider that they can throw for a strike with reasonable consistency. It doesn't have to be a plus pitch. It has to be an average pitch. And that's all they're going to ask him to do.
The guy you're thinking about, the kick returner.
Bolden, yeah.
Bolden.
No. Bolden's the one I mentioned. There's another one in there. Anthony Gould. Anthony Gould is the guy. So those two guys are speedsters. Bolden's the better receiver of the two. But those two guys going over the top, introducing that component adds a dimension to the offense that wasn't there a year ago. So I hear you on DJU, but I think you have to think about it with that sort of context.
I'd be remiss. We're going to move into the creme de la creme to include Oregon here in a moment, but be remiss for our friends in Detroit, Dante Moore. What is there? Are you hearing any early returns for coming out of spring? I know the hype's there. A kid that, well, thank Christ. His whole commitment to UCLA is very weird.
Yes.
So
I covered it extensively. It was quite odd.
It's very odd.
But also, I mean, it was logical at some level. Like, the coach who was your primary recruiter leaves Oregon, so you don't go to Oregon. Yeah, like, of course that makes sense. So then but going to UCLA, that was last second. I mean, very last second. But you're going to a guy in Chip Kelly who just developed a guy who came in far less polished than Dante Moore and developed him into a high-level college quarterback.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to say something that his dad has a big Michigan tattoo. So that's a weird one. But yeah, let's jump into the top 4 here. And in my mind, it's teams that play very good defense in Oregon and Utah, and it's teams that don't really play defense is optional, Washington and USC, but they make up for it with the explosivity on offense.
Don't sleep on Oregon State, by the way.
Fair. I think it's almost like asking too much. That defense, you lose enough pieces. You only have 5 returning starters defensively.
It's a prove it year as a program for Oregon State. No doubt. It is a prove it year as a program. But they kept all their coaches from a year ago, both their coordinators and their head coach. I think they've upgraded a quarterback. They're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the country, and their defensive coordinator has lost some personnel. That's a question mark, but he's really, Trent Bray is his name. He's really sharp.
And I'll say one thing about the win totals. You have USC Utah, Oregon, Washington, Oregon State, and UCLA, either at all at 8.5 or 9.5, all within a game. Very rare in a conference you see that many teams with that close of win totals. And really, and you said it before, and I said it to Stu before the show started. This is the best. This conference has the best quarterbacks in college football.
Oh, absolutely.
It is loaded.
I don't even know that there's a close second, frankly.
Have you ever heard of Gavin Winsett? I digress. But just a little guy out of Kentucky that's going to shock the world this year. Stu, shut up. Don't say anything. But no, Spencer, go ahead with these top teams, USC, the Utahs. Bo Nix.
Yeah, so the biggest question for my Ducks actually is whether or not they can play a better brand of defense than they did last year. Because a season ago, the only teams that played real defense were Utah and Oregon State. Both were very good teams. Utah, of course, won the conference again. But Oregon's defense had its moments, but also had some really critical lapses that prevented them from reaching the Pac-12 championship game and were, frankly, embarrassing losses to both their rivals in the same year. And we're still upset about that and are out for revenge in 2023 in a big, big way. So I think that Oregon is a team that's going to pay attention to defense more than everybody else, except for Utah, because Kyle Whittingham is a defensive head coach. But I think you have three styles spread amongst those four teams. Again, I will not discount Oregon State, but even so, you have three styles here. So Oregon State and Utah, they are two teams that are going to run a lot of single back, pro style, run the football first, play good defense, and heavy play action. Oregon is a little bit more power spread where they're in the shotgun on almost every play, not exclusively, but almost every play from a year ago. They had a jumbo package they used really effectively last season, but they are a team that wants to run the football first, but will open it up and take shots down the field and love the play action out of that spread power run game. Those were some of their biggest plays from a year ago. Then you have Washington and USC. These are offensive coaches. These are offensive teams. These are great quarterbacks. These are the best weapons for wide receivers in the Pac-12. I think it's USC 1, Washington 2, probably Arizona 3, Oregon 4, if you're just talking about the top two guys. But because Tetero McMillan and Jacob Cowing, this is a fantastic wide receiver tandem down there for Jed Fish in Arizona. And one of the reasons they're an interesting team, they can score a lot of points. They can't stop anybody.
Made Delora look good, and I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah, no, Delora's a gamer. Like, he was at Washington State. He won games. He goes to Arizona. He's winning football games. The guy, he's not going to be the best quarterback in the conference, but he'll never be the worst, and he is wildly productive, and I think he has a good, smart head coach, coaching him up on all that sort of stuff. So I think that for the top four, or for the top five, really, because I put Oregon State in there, you have the pro style kind of under center base, offense with Utah and Oregon State. You've got the power run and play action of Oregon, and then you have basically the air raid. Like Washington and USC, they are throw first, run second, and that's the way that they operate. And they are just going to try and outscore you straight up, no kicker. Just we're just going to throw the ball. We have great receivers, we have great quarterbacks, we have good offensive lines, and that's what their coaches want to do, and they know how to do that very effectively. So I think that's one thing that makes the Pac-12 championship picture interesting as well, is the contrasting styles of all the different contenders, because you have a lot of them in there.
Roberto, can we get your take, Spencer, real quick? Roberto, run down the over-unders for the teams.
Oh, I love this.
And stop us when you like something. We got Cal already up on the board.
Yeah. Well, how about this? How about this? And this is the last thing that I got time for, because I got a commitment to get to. But go down and read the over/under win total, and I'll tell you whether I like them to go over or under.
Okay, beautiful.
Sure thing.
Right up our alley. USC 9.5.
Over.
Oregon 9.5.
Over.
Washington 9.5.
Over.
Utah 8.5.
Over.
Oregon State 8.5.
Pains me to say it, but under.
UCLA 8.5.
Under.
Washington State, we already discussed, 6.5.
Over.
Cal 5.5.
So here, I'll go.
I already marked you down here for over, so we better.
I'll go over that. Here's the thing: is for months I talked about on my show, just mentioning from time to time, when it was at 4.5, I was like, over. Give me over 4.5 all day. 5.5, I will lean over, but I would say stay away. And frankly, I'll lean towards over, but Cal and Oregon State both. If I were betting, I wouldn't touch them. The other ones, I would feel pretty good about betting. But anyway, continue going down.
Arizona 4.5.
Over.
Arizona State 4.5.
Under.
Colorado 3.5.
Under.
Love that bet. Love that bet. Stanford 3.5.
Oh, Stanford. Can you still get Stanford at 3.5?
That's what it has here. It has DraftKings. DraftKings has it at 3. MGM has it at 3.5. So if I was you, I mean, if I was myself betting,
dude, I'd go
and get the hook.
I'd go Stanford under 3.5 tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my favorite of all of them, because I could see Stanford losing one of their non-conference games. Probably not to Sacramento State. Well, they're going to lose to Notre Dame, but they play Hawaii.
On Sac State.
They play Hawaii week 1, and I don't think Hawaii's very good, but I don't know that Stanford is that good either. And Stanford's quarterback situation is the worst in the Pac-12. I do not see Stanford winning more games than a season ago. They lost a lot of talent, and they lost their starting quarterback with a new coach. I would hammer them under 3.5. If you can, that line moved down to 2.5 at FanDuel for a reason. I would say that is definitely an underplay.
Spencer, can't thank you enough, brother.
Yeah.
Yes, Locked on Ducks, Locked on Pac-12. Go check them out. We'll be back next week, ACC, with Chris Van Dyne. Until then, take care, brush your hair, and we'll see you after a while.